pay attention to the woman in the white Subaru. Her name is Rachel Morrison. She's a 29-year-old ICU nurse driving home after a double shift at Memorial Regional Hospital. Now, pay attention to the man standing beside the disabled Honda Accord on the shoulder of Route 17. His name is Trevor Haines. In exactly 11 minutes, he will use the dashcam footage he's recording right now to cover up what he's about to do. This was not a random act of kindness. It was a calculated execution. At 11:47 p.m. on March 22nd, Rachel Morrison pulled her Subaru onto the shoulder of Route 17 inches Mahwah, New Jersey. The temperature was 41 degrees. Light rain had begun to fall. Ahead of her, hazard lights blinked on a silver Honda Accord. A man stood beside it, waving his phone in apparent frustration. Rachel did what she had done countless times before. She stopped to help. Security footage from a nearby warehouse would later show her vehicle slowing to a stop approximately 40 feet behind the Honda. Timestamp read 11:47 and 23 seconds. Rachel stepped out of her car. She approached the man. They exchanged words. He gestured toward the open hood of his vehicle. She nodded and moved closer. At 11:49 p.m., both vehicles were still visible on the warehouse camera. At 11:58 p.m., only the Honda remained. Rachel Morrison and her white Subaru were gone. The first sign that something was wrong came at 7:15 the next morning when Rachel failed to show up for her scheduled shift at Memorial Regional. Rachel Morrison was known for two things: her competence under pressure and her reliability. In 3 years as an ICU nurse, she had never missed a shift without calling ahead. Her supervisor, Linda Vasquez, immediately tried Rachel's cell phone. The call went straight to voicemail. Linda tried again, same result. By 8 a.m., she escalated her concern to hospital administration. By 9 a.m., Rachel's fiancé, David Chen, received a call asking if Rachel was homesick. She wasn't. David had left for a business conference in Boston the night before. He assumed Rachel had made it home safely from her shift and was asleep when he landed. Now, standing in a hotel lobby 200 miles away, he felt his stomach drop. He tried her phone, voicemail. He called her parents. They hadn't heard from her. He called her best friend, Alicia. Nothing. At 10:32 a.m., David Chen filed a missing person report with the Mahwah Police Department. The responding officer took down the details. Rachel Morrison, 29 years old, ICU nurse, last seen leaving Memorial Regional Hospital at approximately 11:30 p.m. on March 22nd. No history of mental health issues. No marital problems. No financial troubles. No reason to disappear. The officer assured David that most missing adults turn up within 48 hours, but David knew Rachel. She would never do this. Something was very, very wrong. While David provided investigators with Rachel's phone records and recent activity, the Mahwah Police Department began retracing her likely route home. Route 17 was the most direct path from the hospital to Rachel and David's apartment in Ridgewood. Officers drove the route, looking for her car, checking rest stops, gas stations, and parking lots. They found nothing. A request was sent to neighboring police departments to check for accidents or vehicles matching Rachel's description. Again, nothing. By the end of the first day, Rachel Morrison had seemingly vanished into thin air. But Rachel Morrison was not the type of person who vanished quietly. She was methodical, thoughtful, and deeply connected to the people in her life. She texted her mother every morning. She video called David every night when he traveled. She kept a planner where every appointment, every shift, and every errand was carefully logged. The last entry in that planner, later recovered from her apartment, read March 23rd, 7 a.m., shift at Memorial. She had every intention of being there. The investigation took on a new urgency. When detectives began analyzing her digital footprint, cell phone records showed that Rachel's phone had been active until 11:52 p.m. on the night she disappeared. The last ping came from a cell tower along Route 17 near the border of Mahwah and Ramsey. After that, the phone went dark. It was either powered off or destroyed. Credit card records showed no activity after her disappearance. Her bank account remained untouched. Her social media, which she used sparingly, had not been accessed. Every piece of data pointed to the same conclusion. Rachel Morrison did not leave voluntarily. David Chen, desperate for answers, began his own investigation. He printed hundreds of flyers with Rachel's picture and plastered them across Mahwah, Ramsey, and Ridgewood. He created a Facebook page that quickly gained thousands of followers. He appeared on local news stations pleading for information. The response from the community was overwhelming. Tips poured in. Someone claimed to have seen a woman, matching Rachel's description, at a diner in Paramus. Another caller reported a white Subaru in a Walmart parking lot. Each lead was investigated. Each lead went nowhere. The case, now 5 days old, was going cold. Then, on March 28th, a warehouse manager named Bill Kowalski was reviewing security footage for an unrelated incident when he noticed something odd. The footage, recorded on the night of March 22nd, showed a white Subaru pulling onto the shoulder of Route 17 just outside his facility. Kowalski recognized the car from the missing person flyers he had seen around town. He immediately called the Mahwah Police Department. Detectives arrived within the hour. What they saw on that footage changed everything. The video was grainy but clear enough. At 11:47 p.m., Rachel Morrison's white Subaru came to a stop behind a silver Honda Accord with its hazard lights on. A man, later identified as Trevor Haines, stood beside the Honda. Rachel exited her vehicle and approached him. They spoke briefly. He gestured toward the engine. She moved closer. At 11:49 p.m., Rachel appeared to be looking under the hood. At 11:51 p.m., the footage showed both individuals moving out of frame toward the rear of the vehicles. At 11:58 p.m., only the Honda remained. Rachel's Subaru was gone. Detectives immediately focused on the Honda Accord. A partial license plate was visible in the footage. Within hours, the vehicle was traced to a 34-year-old man named Trevor Haines. He lived in Wayne, New Jersey, just 15 minutes from where Rachel disappeared. A background check revealed a troubling history. Haines had been arrested twice for aggravated assault. Both charges were later dropped due to lack of evidence. He had no current warrants, but his name appeared in multiple domestic disturbance reports filed by ex-girlfriends. This was not a good Samaritan. This was a predator. On March 29th, detectives obtained a warrant and arrived at Trevor Haines' residence. He answered the door calmly, almost too calmly, and agreed to come to the station for questioning. In the interrogation room, Haines maintained his composure. He admitted that his car had broken down on Route 17 on the night of March 22nd. He said a woman stopped to help him. He claimed they talked briefly, but she left after realizing she didn't have jumper cables. He said he eventually got his car started and drove home. He denied any wrongdoing. Detectives pressed him on the timeline. If Rachel left at 11:51 p.m., why did the security footage show her car still there at 11:58 p.m.? Haines hesitated. He said he must have gotten the time wrong. Detectives asked where Rachel's car was now. Haines said he had no idea. He insisted he never touched her vehicle. But investigators had one more card to play. They had obtained a warrant to search Haines' car and home, and what they found inside would destroy his story completely. Inside Trevor Haines' garage, investigators found Rachel Morrison's white Subaru. It had been covered with a tarp and partially disassembled. The license plates were removed. The VIN number had been scratched off. Inside the vehicle, forensic teams discovered traces of blood on the passenger seat and dashboard. DNA testing would later confirm the blood belonged to Rachel Morrison. But the most damning piece of evidence was found on Haines's laptop. Buried in a folder labeled Work Files was dashcam footage that Trevor Haines had recorded himself on the night of March 22nd. The video showed Rachel Morrison approaching his car. It showed her leaning over the engine. And then, in a moment of horrifying clarity, it showed Trevor Haines striking her from behind with a tire iron. Rachel collapsed instantly. The video continued as Haines dragged her unconscious body to her own vehicle, placed her in the driver's seat, and drove away in her car. His Honda, detectives now realized, had never been broken down. It was bait. The dashcam footage was meant to serve as his alibi, a recording of a simple roadside interaction that he could edit and present if anyone ever came asking. But he never got the chance to edit it. And now, it was the single most incriminating piece of evidence in the case. Confronted with the dashcam video, Trevor Haines' calm demeanor shattered. He sat in the interrogation room, head in his hands, and admitted everything. He said he had been planning it for weeks. He had researched isolated stretches of highway. He had tested the fake breakdown routine multiple times. Rachel Morrison was not his first target. She was just the first one who stopped. Haines explained that after striking Rachel, he drove her car to a secluded area near Ramapo Mountain State Forest. He admitted that he intended to assault her, But Rachel regained consciousness and fought back. In the struggle, Haines said, he strangled her. He claimed it was not part of the plan. He claimed he panicked. But the medical examiner's report would later contradict that narrative. Rachel Morrison had been strangled slowly and deliberately. This was not panic. This was murder. Haines led investigators to the location where he had left Rachel's body. It was a densely wooded area off Skyline Drive, less than 10 miles from where she had been abducted. Her body was found on April 1st, 9 days after she disappeared. The cause of death was asphyxiation due to ligature strangulation. She had also sustained blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with being struck by a tire iron. Rachel Morrison, the ICU nurse who had dedicated her life to saving others, had been killed while trying to help a stranger on the side of the road. The arrest and charging of Trevor Haines brought a small measure of closure to Rachel's family, but the pain of her loss was immeasurable. David Chin, who had been planning to propose to Rachel during a trip to Iceland that summer, spoke at a press conference alongside Rachel's parents. He described her as the kindest person he had ever known, someone who would stop to help anyone, anytime, without hesitation. That kindness, he said, was what Trevor Haines had exploited. Rachel's colleagues at Memorial Regional held a vigil in her honor. Over 300 people attended. They shared stories of her compassion, her skill, and her unwavering dedication to her patients. Linda Vasquez, her supervisor, described Rachel as the kind of nurse every hospital hopes to find, someone who treated every patient like family. Her loss, Linda said, was felt by everyone who had the privilege of working with her. Trevor Haines was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and tampering with evidence. His trial began in January of the following year. The prosecution presented the dashcam footage, the forensic evidence from Rachel's vehicle, and Haines's own confession. The defense attempted to argue that Haines suffered from a personality disorder that impaired his judgment. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Trevor Haines was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In his sentencing statement, the judge described Haines as a dangerous predator who had meticulously planned the abduction and murder of an innocent woman. The judge noted that the dashcam footage Haines recorded demonstrated a level of premeditation and callousness that was deeply disturbing. There would be no mercy, no second chances. Trevor Haines would spend the rest of his life behind bars. In the months following the trial, Rachel Morrison's family established the Rachel Morrison Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting roadside safety and supporting victims of violent crime. The foundation partnered with local law enforcement to launch a public awareness campaign encouraging drivers to call 911 if they encounter a stranded motorist rather than stopping themselves. David Chen became a vocal advocate for the cause, speaking at schools and community events about Rachel's story. He urged people to remember that helping others does not require putting yourself in danger. Sometimes, he said, the best way to help is to call for professional assistance. Rachel would have understood that. She was, after all, a nurse. She knew the importance of safety protocols. She knew that even the most compassionate acts require boundaries. But on that rainy night in March, faced with a stranger in need, she made a choice that cost her everything. The case of Rachel Morrison is a stark reminder of the world we live in. A world where kindness can be weaponized, where trust can be fatal, and where predators like Trevor Haines lurk on the margins, waiting for the perfect victim. Rachel Morrison was a woman who dedicated her life to healing others. She worked 12-hour shifts in the ICU. She held the hands of dying patients. She comforted grieving families. She saved lives. And in the end, the very compassion that made her extraordinary was the thing that made her vulnerable. Trevor Haines saw that vulnerability and exploited it. He planned his crime with precision. He set his trap, and when Rachel Morrison stopped to help, he took everything from her: her future, her dreams, her life. But Rachel's story does not end with her death. It lives on in the foundation that bears her name, in the lives she saved during her years as a nurse, and in the countless people who have been inspired by her compassion and warned by her tragedy. The dashcam footage that Trevor Haines recorded, intended to be his alibi, became the evidence that convicted him. It stands as a chilling testament to the lengths some people will go to harm others, and it serves as a final, tragic record of Rachel Morrison's last moments. A nurse who stopped to help, a woman who believed in the goodness of strangers, A life stolen on the side of a highway by a man who felt nothing but contempt for the very humanity Rachel embodied. Trevor Haines is in prison. Rachel Morrison is gone. And the world is left to reckon with the senseless cruelty that ended her life and the enduring legacy of kindness she left behind.